I got. But I think God has blessed you, and you've blessed us. Thank you. And also Abigail, your voice, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Did they say that there was someone from Australia here this morning? Why? I mean, what time did you set out this morning? Because I set out this morning, and Vanessa will find on her phone, I sent so many messages, and I've come to the big church, and I don't see anyone here. So I left that church that I thought was Ladywood, and then I went to another one, and that was another big church around here, and that wasn't Ladywood. I said, Lord, help me, because me and my sat-nav were not working this morning. And eventually he guided me here. I don't think I've ever been here before, but I think you've done really well. To get here. You know, today for me it's a real strange thing to come here where there's people. Over these last 18 months, doing presentations on Zoom or standing in an empty church with a camera there, imagining that I'm talking to people who I can't see. I understood something about faith at that time and about talking to God who you can't see. I had to talk to a camera and imagine there's people there. I don't know their reaction. I don't know how, there was no rapport between me and the camera. You see, this is what Satan has created. An unnatural environment. I'm not here to tell you my ideas about where COVID came from or anything like that, or about the vaccine, but I will tell you this, or about the mask, I'll tell you this. We were created as human beings who communicate with each other, who touch each other, who see each other. This is unnatural.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're walking around with a mask on your face because of the situation. When we speak with each other, we see our faces. We're used to seeing our eyes, our mouth, our nose that express. We do a dance with each other when we communicate. I know how you're responding because I see your mouth, the muscles in your face and everything. But I say, I mean, the mask has been useful, I think, because I usually wear a cap during the week, a woolen cap. And in town, I put the mask on and the cap. I have walked past people in church who I didn't want to meet. Looked in their face and they didn't even recognize me. It has been so useful. But it's unnatural. This separation, this social distancing, all of this in church. Look at the empty seats because we can't come in here and come together. Look, Satan has done this. Divide and rule. People in church frightened to tell each other whether they've had the vaccine or whether they haven't, because they're frightened in case they'll be judged. People in church frightened to say whether they agree with the conference ruling about it or not, because they feel they'll be judged. And so you can see how easy it is to polarize people. Satan has used this from the very beginning, the idea of divide and rule. When you're talking about Adam and Eve in the garden, when you're talking about Cain and Abel, when you're talking about Jacob and Esau, separate the people and you can rule over them. When you're talking about India and Pakistan, when you're talking about different parts of Africa, divide and rule, divide and conquer. Today is Education Day. I looked at the definition of education. I don't know if I can find it here, because I mean, I noticed over the period, this period, COVID has shown me the difference between myself and my children. I've seen it sometimes when, you know, going, before I was, you know, I'm traveling somewhere and I'm going to the whether it's an aeroplane or whether it's a train, I'm looking for my ticket. I'll get my ticket out, and I'll just see all these young people just going by with their phone. Bam, bam, just on there, you know. And I get so angry, you know, because I've got to find my ticket. I don't know how to. And all through with all this Zoom and everything, I had to get my son and my daughter, Miranda and Tristan, to show me how to put the thing in, you know, the ID number and everything, so that I could appear on Zoom like I knew what I was doing. They didn't see them round the corner. And you know, the brain is an incredible thing in terms of our use of it and what it is. I mean, it says in the Bible, I think it's Psalm 139 and verse 14, we have been wonderfully and fearfully made. It's incredible how we are. The brain, when children are born, they say now they've discovered that children are already hearing the outside when they're in their mother's womb. They did an experiment in South Africa where this doctor, she put very small microphones in her womb. You know how she would have done that through the natural openings. And they were able to hear the father's voice, the mother's voice from the outside, music. And they see the baby blinking and moving in the womb according to the external music. Babies born 100 billion cells in the brain by the age of 2. And we got all these and we use them from then on. This 100 billion cells, billions to over 12 billion connections when we learn something. The brain develops the fastest, it grows the most that it will ever grow in the entire life in the first 3 to 5 years of life. Aristotle was mentioned this morning. Aristotle also said, give me a child till the age of 7 and I will give you the man. What's that saying? That's saying that children learn and absorb more in that time. Their brains are like sponges soaking it up. Now, before I forget, the definition of education: the act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself intellectually for mature life. You see these kids like Anna there and all these others. You've got toys at home. You think, well, toys are the children's world. But no, they're not. What is a toy? What is every single toy? What is it? Ah, bang on. It's a small version of the big one. You got a toy car. It's a replica of a car out there. You got a dolly. It's a replica of a baby or a person. You see what? So what does that tell you? What are toys? What's the purpose of toys? Education and training of the children when they're children so that they can be adults in the adult world. Why do children copy adults? What's it say in the Bible? The verse this morning, Proverbs 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. What it means is they cannot depart from it. It doesn't mean you train up a child to be an Adventist Christian and always stay in church. What it means is the stuff that you put in the mind of your children, they can't remove it because it's there. If I say to you now, let me educate you now. All right, close your eyes and don't think of the color red. Do it now. Come on, don't. So you can't once I put it in your mind, you can't help it. So in other words, what you have put in your child's mind, they can't separate themselves. You train up a child when they're young in the way they should go when they're old, they cannot depart from that because you put it inside of them. So the responsibility of a parent is a serious thing. Satan, the great enemy of the world, understands this. And so he has sought to separate the parent from the child. He's learned about children and what little children think about because he learned it in the Garden of Eden. Now, if you think of the Garden of Eden, who were created? Adam and Eve, the only humans in history who did not have a childhood. They came into existence as adults, but they had the minds of children because they had never experienced anything. To come into existence with a perfect brain that can absorb everything, but they've never absorbed or experienced anything. They don't even know this person, this maker, this creator who's created. They never met him before. They didn't grow up with him. They just, bam, come into consciousness. And God breathed into Adam the breath of life, and he became a living being. So he's in an adult body. We understand they were big people in those days. We would call them giants. But Adam and Eve had the brains of children. Why did they have the brains of children? Because they had never experienced anything. That was their birth into the world. And Satan understood this. And now there's proof that this was an issue of education. Because we know that Satan was in the garden. The time of when he was fallen from heaven must have happened earlier. There was war in heaven. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7 says there's war in heaven, and Satan and all his angels were cast down to the earth. We know that this must have happened before because already he's no longer called Lucifer, he's called Satan. So that means the rebellion has happened and he's cast down to the earth because he is here. The Garden of Eden is on the earth. Well, they say it's in the Rift Valley in North Africa there somewhere because of the crossing of these rivers and everything. But he was there when God gave the first instruction to Adam and Eve. Of this tree, you shan't eat. You can eat all the other trees, but you can't eat of this tree. Yeah? So God's given them the first bit of information. How does Satan come in? Genesis chapter 3, he comes in challenging very subtly the education of God. It says, where are we? We're in Revelation chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3, thank you. And we're looking at where we are in verse 1. I'm going to read down from verse 1 to verse 5. Now listen. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, and which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of the tree of the garden? So we know that Satan heard the conversation between God and Adam and Eve, because his opening words are to challenge the education, the instruction of God. Hath God said, Ye shall not eat of the tree? And the woman said unto the, where's Adam at this point? So this idea, so you imagine Satan, how he's dealing with you. He's here, he's following. He's following, he's waiting for an opportunity when they separate. And he comes in close. This is how he is with you. Don't think Satan is far away. He is close, right up, waiting for an opportunity to devour you. He studies you like you are the only person on the planet.
That's right.
And when he finds his opportunity, whether it's through someone else or through your own imagination or through something, he will strike. And so we find here, and the woman said, so Satan waited until he separated from Adam. She separated from Adam. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So she's repeating what she has learned from the Maker. And Satan so very clever. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. So for the first time, in the history of humanity, there are two opposing thoughts in the mind of the first beings. Two opposing thoughts. God has said, you shall die. Now comes a thought, you shall not die. Take the vaccine, don't take the vaccine. Tell the people to follow the local government. Tell the people, no, we won't take the vaccine. We will trust in God. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm here showing you that there is a polarization. What do? For God doth know, verse 5, that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. Notice it's gods, small g. Okay, ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Was that a lie? Was that a lie? The moment you disobey God, you know the difference between good and evil. So here is a truth. Satan deals in 90% truth, but it's the error that catches you, the small amount. But it says here, ye shall be as gods, knowing. So what is it when you know something? What has happened to you? You've been educated. You shall be as gods, knowing. Give me a child to the age of 7 and I will give you the man. Why is it that we teach our children from young, whether you're homeschooling or whether in a state school, which we'll come back to in a little while. We teach them at a young age. Why do we teach them at a young age? Be polite. One of the young men said to me this morning, hello, as I was walking past here, and I thought, wow, little guy. He looked in my face and said hello. Some of the older folk, they complain that children, there's the little man in the suit at the back there. He said hello to me in the back room there. Hello. What do adults complain of today? Am I looking your face and just walk past you and not say nothing? But this young man's been educated. Amen. And so the earliest part of his life, he's been educated. So what happens? We absorb so much more when we're young. That's why they teach music when they're young. That's why people like, Simone Biles, the amazing gymnast, taken when she was young. Well, we got a boy in this country, this young black boy, what's his name? Romani Wilfred. He's 16 now. He's got an IQ of 162, higher than Bill Gates and higher than Einstein. My nephew did his IT O-level at the age of 7 and got a B. And I was ready to say yes. Then I realized it was through my wife's line. It wasn't mine. That hurt a bit, but it wasn't for me. It was her side of the family. But it shows the potential. The potential in our children for great things. And they're taken as young children, and when it's put in their mind, just like the Hebrew boys, they can be champions and they can be more educated than people out there. They can be more educated than their peers if they are taken from a young age and given the right education. And Satan understands this. Why do you think they take children as what they call child soldiers? Children as young as this young man here, the eldest in the story group here, and they take them and they give them guns, they make them go through the woods and force them to shoot and kill people, or to see it being done, so that it's put in their mind and it becomes normal, and they can grow up being killers or terrorists. Why the gang masters take kids and give them trainers and give them tracksuits as presents to undermine the parents, so that they can use them as drug runners. And so then they grow up and they become drug barons as well. You take the child when they're young, and then you can mold the mind. It's incredible, really. I mean, if you think about it, pastors Pastors, what do? They train for 3 years to have a career to work for the Lord for 30 years. How is it that Jesus trained for 30 years to have a career for 3 years? You see, it took him 30 years. This mission he had was so important. He had to take 30 years to train before he could even step forward to be baptized and to begin his mission, because this was so important. Education is so important. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. Amen. But the interesting thing is that what Satan has done, he has understood that you as parents, you understand this. Now, there's a prayer made this morning for those parents who have children and people who don't have children. But we in this community believe that it takes a village to raise a child. Now, how has Satan challenged that? How does Satan challenge that? It takes a village. What does it mean? It means that whether you've got children or not, you are the guardians and the educators of the children. And how has he undermined that? Little child comes up, and I've seen it in my church, I've seen it in other churches. Little child comes up, lifts up an older woman's dress or disrespectful, and then that woman turns around and tells off the child. The child goes and tells the mum. The mum then comes and don't you speak to my child, if you come to me. And the little child is seeing this. How does that affect their mind? When we were young, if any adult came to our parents about us, before we even got in the house, they knew about it. I remember a girl telling me when I first came to the West Midlands, she said she was in town, walking in the town with a boyfriend, and she was only like 15 or something, walking with a boyfriend, holding hands, and some sister who knew her mother knew it. So she let go of the hand and run into the bus and let go, because remember the older people, they say, we know you from somewhere. Who are you then? You is so-and-so daughter. Oh, yes. You see, and there's this connection. They looked after each other in those days. So what has happened, Satan has understood this, and he has undermined it. So that what happens, I mean, schools, the first school was in 597 in this country. The idea where the state can begin to educate the children, because before children were like little slaves working, up chimneys and doing all sorts of things. And they said, hey, no, we need to educate these children. Now, I'm not here speaking against the state education. We all come up through the state education. Some do homeschooling, but I'll tell you this: education does not start when the child goes to school. The education starts in the home. And it's interesting, isn't it, that some of the most educated nations in the world, Japan, Norway. In Norway, the children start school at what? 7 years old. In Japan, they start at 9 years old. The people grow up. What is that telling us? What does that suggest to us? It suggests to us that something important needs to be done at the home. The natural way of doing it before they come out into the state situation. But now the state, what's happening? The state wants to take them on earlier and earlier and earlier, so that the state can take away from what can be done in the home. So that now in Scotland, you can now have a child, the age of 4, if they believe, oh, I'm a boy, I want to be a girl, that they can have transgender, gender-changing surgery, or the actual hypothalamic blockers, hormone blockers, and they can start doing this process without the parents' consent. So what's happening? What's happening in the world? It's a girl now can have an abortion at the age of 14, without the parents' knowledge or consent. So the state has come in to undermine the power of the parents in order to create the next generation with a different attitude from that which we grew up with. And so we find very, very subtly there's changes. A friend of mine at church, she said that she was speaking to a young person at church, and they were talking about something about homosexuality. And the young person said, "Oh, that's." She said, "Well, what do you think about that idea in the church?" And the young person said, "Oh, that's old school. That's old school. In other words, anything can go now. That's just the old-fashioned thing." So what's happened? That child has begun to be educated in a different way. Your children, when they go to university, I'm on an atheist group, an atheist WhatsApp group. Okay, and it's interesting. So it's there were 3 Christians and 3 atheists, and now there's 2 of us, 2 Christians and 3 atheists. Each one of those atheists were the sons of pastors in the Seventh-day Adventist church. They don't believe in God. They're mocking God. They say God's like Father Christmas. You people believing in God, you're old-fashioned. Get with the science. God is make-believe. Where did they learn that? They learned that in university. And I know this because I knew these boys. I knew them. We grew up together in school. They were sons of pastors, big-time pastors years ago. And now they don't believe. And I know a number of people like that. When you go out into the world, there's a challenge. What does the Bible tell us about this? It tells us something about this very, very subtly. When you look in the Bible at in Timothy, I think we're looking at 2 Timothy, I think. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 15. I think that's where it is, or chapter 2 and verse 15. Let's have a look at it. Turn in your Bibles. 2 Peter. Sorry, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Timothy. Oh, yes, Timothy, chapter 2 and verse 15, it says, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed." So what's it say about it? It says, study. Study to show yourself approved. Study to show yourself approved. And then if you look in the Bible, if you look in 1 Peter, chapter 3 and verse 15, it says there, "Always be ready to give an account to those who call you to give evidence of the faith that is in you." So the Bible's telling us we got to study to be prepared. We got to be study to give an account so that we are not shaken by every wind of doctrine. Hosea 4 and verse 6, what does it say there? "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge." And so what happens today? Listen, I'm not even old enough to remember this, but I heard stories of, my parents are from Barbados and Antigua, they were. But you guys, some of you from Jamaica, you can talk about a Nancy story. So there was a time when your grandparents or your great-grandparents, the children sitting down on the veranda while the grandma's telling them Nancy stories, okay? So there's a kind of interaction between the grandma and the children, a bit of education and entertainment at the same time. Then came the radio. And so now you had all the family sitting around the radio. You can see pictures of it, old-fashioned pictures of families sitting around the radio, listening to music and stories. And then John Yogi Beard came and he invented the television. And the television, still, people all gathered around the television. Do you know, in my day, the television, it was available from about 12 o'clock in the day till 12 o'clock at night. There were only 3 channels. The rest of the time, you had a photograph. What they called it, the trademark. What did they call it? You just saw this little girl with a piece of chalk, and she was sitting there smiling at the camera. That was all that was on all through the night and any time, apart from 12 in the lunchtime till 12 at night. And you know, at 12 at night they played God Save the Queen. And some of us, the children, we had to stand in front of the telly like this while God Save the Queen was playing. 3 channels. That's all there was, 3 channels. And so then I remember seeing my first colored television. I was amazed. Went to visit someone's house, and there I remember the program. It was Star Trek. I remember I was about 5 or 6. I was standing. I was amazed. Colored television, marvelous Technicolor. That's what they called it. And so now what we begin to see, the television is on for longer. It stretched now to 9 o'clock in the morning. And now people could look at it for a bit longer. And then there was channel 4. 4 channels. This is exciting. It's incredible. And now what's happening? The parents are busy washing up in the kitchen. The children are looking at the television. Then something remarkable happened. Television was one thing. If you were in a coma from, I don't know, about 1950, and you came out of a coma in this time, you will be amazed. You'd see the houses, a lot of the houses, I mean, all this area looks pretty much the same, you know. It's not the houses, maybe there's some more modern houses and everything, and there's cars and all that. But the thing that you would see, and you would think it's bizarre, you see young people walking around the streets like this. Walking around the streets. Do you know, even now, I'm walking along and I see someone go, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm looking at them and I can't see anything. Yeah, man. I'm thinking this person's mad. And then as I get closer, I see they've got a little thing in their ear, and I thought, oh, a microphone. So actually talking to someone. So in other words, what I'm saying is, now we got something else that's better than the television. We got the phone, we got the mobile phone, we got the internet, we got a young man went on television and said, I don't have to learn anything now, I can just Google it. So the brain has become labile. We don't have to learn anything today. We can Google it. So what's the point in school? You don't need school today because you can Google it. And so what happens? This slowly begins to take over. You go to the fish and chip shop. I show my son, hey, look at this. You're sitting in the car and I look at this and you see these 2 people, boyfriend and girlfriend, sitting at the table, one table. She's got a phone on, he's got a phone on. They're not even communicating. And so what we begin to find, something is happening in one church, which will remain nameless. I don't actually know the name of the church, but I've spoken to the youth leader of the conference, and he told me, Adam Randing told me that they did a Wi-Fi sweep in a church. And what did they find? They found during divine service, young people sitting in there with their phones on, looking at pornography during the service.
Is that all?
So what we're seeing today is this undermining the education. This grabs the mind. Look at the young man, Jake Davison, in Plymouth. What happened? He went around and shot all those people. How did it? Well, he was in a group called Incel. These groups who hate women, they can't get relationships, they're angry and everything. And then you can go online now, kill people who you don't like. You can go online. This is how you can be anorexic. This is how you can kill yourself. The dark web. We lose control. Our children got these. They're in their bedroom. They're looking at these things, and we don't even realize Satan has come into the house, not through the front door, but through the internet. Please don't misunderstand me. The internet is a wonderful thing. You know, there's so many things that you can learn, so many things that you can do. I needed the internet to get here this morning. But with every good thing, there's always a challenge. And what I'm here to say to us today, 1 Peter 5 and verse 8, in the children's story, beware, your adversary, the devil, is coming around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And it's coming through so much, it's changing the world through this. For the first time in life, this period, this global, this period of COVID has shown me that the world can be controlled. This is the first time you can say, oh no, but we had World War I and World War II. No, that weren't control. You had two sides. You had the Allies against the others. You had Russia, America, and Britain against Japan, Germany, and Italy. World War II. But now we are all one. They've shown us. They've shown us the death toll. People who are dying from COVID every day is held before us. And so we're afraid. We're afraid, and fear brings control. For the first time in the world, oh no, it's just the Western world. Oh yeah, you go online and you look in the forests of Brazil, the Amazon rainforest. You look in Zimbabwe, and you'll find you check out the Watutsi tribesmen. You see them all. They got two things in common. They got grass skirts and mud huts. You think they're backward people? You think they're backward people? They all got grass skirts and mud huts, and what else they got? They got masts and they got mobile phones. You go online and you'll see it. And so what I'm saying is, for the first time in history, the world has become globalized. It is up to us. We need to have the education. If we're going to go out there to witness to the world, you should be the light of the world. You should be the salt of the earth. How can you do that if you don't have the education yourselves? So many things we have to unlearn. We don't have time to talk about those things. Things that we have learned that are incorrect. Things that affect us to make us feel that we are second-class citizens. The Europeanization of God or Jesus and all of that. But we don't have time to talk about that now. All I'll say is this: I did a little trick that I enjoyed doing. I was a bit scared before the lockdown. I took a picture, a European picture. We learned that Cleopatra is Liz Taylor, Moses is Charlton Heston, Jesus is Robert Powell. So what's that? That creates in our mind the supreme being that look like us, and yet you find in Revelation chapter 3 it talks about skin like burnished bronze, like the jardine, the sardis stone, which is darker, even in the demographic of the region where Jesus came from. You find that people have darker skin. This ain't about separation, but what it's about is teaching us that we are not second-class citizens. Amen. But what Satan has done is try to polarize between whites and blacks. And so you have to unlearn in your mind. You pray to God. You're talking to an old white man on a throne in the sky with a beard. So what I did, I took the picture of the European picture of Jesus in a black church. I said, who is this? Jesus. Jesus. It was on A4. And so I took the picture. I ripped like this, and oh, like that. I felt a bit scared as well. I thought they were going to take me and throw me off a cliff. I said, if you're shocked, does that say something about your indoctrination? Even God has said you shall, God was so clever when in the 10 Commandments, what's he saying? What's he saying? You don't have any statues or bow down and worship. We've created statues, we've created images of people, human beings who we say looks like Jesus, what we imagine. And so then we bow down and worship these things without realizing in our minds. This is why God hasn't appeared to us. This is why God has told us not to have these images. Because it affects us, it controls us. We will see Jesus as he is one day. Until then, we got to move by faith.
Amen.
And we've got to educate our children, because I'm telling you, the children are the next generation. We don't know exactly when Jesus is coming. You've got some people in the church now setting dates. Oh, Jesus is going to come in 2027. Jesus is going to come in 2032. But Jesus said, no man knoweth the day nor the hour.
Amen.
Simple knowledge. He said, educate yourself. If he's in the desert, don't go. If he's in the upper room, don't go. What happened to us? We find in 1993, we're running off to Waco to look for Jesus. And what happened to us? 76 people killed. People today, after we've learned all the years about what the mark of the beast is, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, America, we are the Roman Catholic Church, America, we understand all the ideas. What's it say in Daniel chapter 7? It tells us there in verses 14 and 23 that and 17 that a beast in prophecy is what? What is a beast in prophecy? It's a kingdom. A beast in prophecy is a kingdom. And so now you've got Adventists running around saying that COVID is the mark of the beast. What on earth has happened to our knowledge? We've just thrown it out of the window for the new exciting thing. We have got to make sure that we go along the straight line. We keep our eyes focused on Jesus, and we do not sway to the right or to the left. This is what Jesus meant when he said the way is narrow. It's narrow. There's so much to be distracted with. And so my final thought today, as church members, as parents, as children, Satan has his eye on us, looking for a gap, looking for an opportunity. While we're at the front door, guarding the front door, he's climbing in through the window. We have got to ask God to guide us, to protect us. You are here. I've never seen this church before. I've never been here before. Satan will try to destroy this church. You see it all around. Young men, as soon as they come of age, they don't want anything to do with church. And so you find an imbalance in the church. You find there's more women than men in the church. Satan is looking to destroy the church. But you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill. We're not arrogant enough to say we're the only ones who are going to be saved or anything like that. But God has put us here, not because we're better than anyone else, but because he has given us this knowledge. And with this knowledge, we are meant to spread that into the world. But we have got to educate ourselves first and educate our children so that we can do the work of God and be part of this blessed hope. That is my prayer, that will be your experience. Because you, whether you're male or female, whether you're black or white, young or old, you ain't here by chance. God has a purpose for everyone. May you discover that in the name of Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Let's thank God Roberts once again, amen, for that poignant message. That in the last stage, church, that we need